Well, good evening and welcome to the Psychic Coffee Shop. How are you, darling?
Doing pretty good. How are you this evening?
Halfway evil and almost totally stupefied by the stupidity that I continue to see.
There's a lot of people there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've kind of hit a wall with it. Like I'm
Yeah,
starting to really have some compassion fatigue here.
I'm done with compassion. I have a very small heart. If my doctor says it's small, it's done.
Aw.
Yeah.
But no, it's been it's yeah.
Yeah, it's been its own thing, its own thing. Thank goodness we have masks mandatory in the state of West Virginia. I think they need to attach a fine to them.
Sort of. We sort of have mandatory masks in West Virginia.
Hi, Brenda.
There's a lot of like batteries not included, some,
I know,
some
I call
assembly
bullshit.
required, some,
Yeah, I've called bullshit. I continue to call bullshit. I have asthma. I wear a mask.
Yeah.
You know, everyone else can wear a mask. Everyone else can stop the spread of this virus, and we can start using some, actual movement forward.
Yeah.
Dang
Well,
thing.
and the big thing that got me were when the stupid card that you could print off, when that started making the rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just idiotic. Hey, Brenda. Hey, Gwen. But no, that part is just completely idiotic. Like the minute I got down there and like because there's one that references, that's illegal due to HIPAA,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sitting here going, what? Like, I like there was a brief moment I thought the card could be legit, and then they start talking about the HIPAA crap.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, see, you just tipped your hand there.
Right.
Like, no.
The justice went after
baker. Yeah, your baker isn't part of your health insurance or your medical provider.
Right.
There's no HIPAA issue. They're not covered by HIPAA. They're like, if they know about your skanky ass and all your STDs,
mm-hmm.
that's because you're a dumbass.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they're in, any kind of business that provides you medical care. So same concept applies.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it just, like, that stuff's starting to kill me. Is like, now we've gone to a card. Like, really? Like, you can't.
It reminds me of the crappy ones they tell people to put up in their windshield, up to the window, saying that you don't have to speak to the police.
Right. Yeah. That's, well, now that one, I've seen a couple of versions of that one. There's one that's like, supposedly like a get out of jail free card. There is another one, however, that is kind of a reminder of, like, you have rights in a pullover situation. You have rights in a stop and frisk situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a legitimate thing. There are situations in which, yeah, you can potentially take an officer harassment situation and at least kind of smack them upside the head with, you better be planting some drugs or this is going to get a complaint.
Right.
So you might as well.
I don't. But no, we've heard the Republicans complain about the the $1 trillion that they lost giving, stimulus checks and giving, small business loans to big corporations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Put some teeth behind this. $10,000 for every business that's allowed in without a mask on.
Well, but we're also running into a problem with the interactions between dumbass customers, because, sorry, nothing else to call you there, and employees. That it's like, right, frontline employees, essential workers. I'm sorry, a lot of these employees are minimum wage,
Mm-hmm.
barely above it.
Mm-hmm.
To borrow an internet meme, ain't nobody got time for this shit. We're no. I don't care what you pay me per hour. I'm not going up against a COVID Karen or a COVID Ken that doesn't want to wear a friggin' mask.
Well,
like, no, I ain't getting hurt.
A lovely, lovely, lovely force of overzealous military. Put them to work.
Yeah. Well, and Brenda brings up a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
One that I've had the thought of myself, and has a lot to do with, like, as I've been seeing the comparisons made between COVID-19 and HIV/AIDS. It really has, like, kind of been a very strong parallel.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole no glove, no love thing, the whole no mask, kill your friends and others thing has. Sorry, I set off my phone. I don't know what I said, but I set off my phone. But no, there's been a very strong parallel there that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of where people are with this, is they are very much not giving a shit about others, the health and safety of others, the life, choices of others. There's no mutual respect here. So yeah, it's very much like stealthing in the fact that, you like right now we really need people to get cool with the idea of consent.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're stupid and you consent to doing stupid things and you want to get together and have a backyard barbecue and you're, or the COVID sharing parties out of what, Alabama, was it?
Florida.
No, I thought it was Alabama.
No, Florida.
Really?
Florida's where that teenage girl is now dead at.
Well, now hold on. There's a lot of stories going on.
Okay.
Like, there's a lot of overlap, but I thought it was Alabama that the college kids were getting together and basically putting money into a pot.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever got sick first won.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. That's consensual activity. You want to be stupid and get sick? Be stupid. Get sick.
Yeah.
Alabama. There we go.
Yeah.
But no, like, that's consent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't consent to trying to go out and buy groceries and getting sick because your dumbass doesn't want to wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hi, there's a sign, no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service.
Yes. Which is enforceable in this state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to get 6 foot in the door and out of everyone's eyesight, and you want to drop your mask like a dumbass?
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry. That's like pulling off a condom in the middle of sex.
Yeah.
That's fucking bullshit.
Right. Well, the other night, we were going for one of my famous, I'm hungry, it's past time for me to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a curbside pickup. And you happen to have the radio on an AM station.
I did?
Well, that's the only way I ever heard her come on.
Oh.
Whatever. Yeah, it's talk radio, so it's an AM station because it wasn't that gospel station that keeps sneaking into our rock.
Well, yeah, and it may have just been a wrong button press, but honestly, at this point, I don't think I'm going to be the one that speaks up to a grocery store employee in terms of, that dumbass isn't wearing a mask. Because I think we can all agree that dumbass isn't wearing a mask because that dumbass is a dumbass. And if that dumbass isn't getting it, there's a high likelihood that dumbass is going to punch an employee in the face or spit on an employee or cough on an employee. So no, I'm not expecting grocery store employees to be mask patrol. Like, I'm not even going to put them in that situation.
I'm taking the question the other direction, and I've already wrote corporate crackers, a few other corporate places going, your employees are not following government mandates. Here's the link to the government mandates. You need to deal with this.
Now, if you're talking about the other way where you go into a business and the employees are not wearing a mask.
Yep.
Honestly, that's your first clue to turn around and leave.
Yep.
Like, I'm taking it with that approach. I'm taking it with the approach that if I walk into a bar or a restaurant or a grocery store and I start hearing a bunch of bubbas talking about faggots and stringing us up and all that, nope, my butt's doing a 180 right out that door. That's how I'm taking it.
Right.
Yeah, there are a few of those as well, Brenda, that just are like the half-ass it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Kroger's has got a few lovely emails and a few lovely tweets, and they're about ready to get a few lovely Facebook messages. And I'm about ready to start naming names instead of one of your employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but one, it's important for companies to see that's happening.
Right.
Two, I do know that right now this is, even for those who are wearing masks, doing so appropriately, following all the rules, and, awesome job, they're still facing COVID Kens and Karens, because I'm sorry, that's what we're going with, or it's what I'm going with, who are turning this into, like, it's anti-Trumpism. That, their Führer has been insulted, and therefore they must go batshit crazy and start trying to jerk people's masks off and start screaming and spitting. There was a story about that in which I believe it was an ice cream shop literally put up signs begging their customers to please stop attacking their employees for wearing masks.
Well,
this is about the health and safety of our employees and their, contribution to your health and safety. This is not about, this is non-political.
Right. And I think it's degradation to see one government official make an appearance without a mask. I understand not having it on where standing at a podium and speaking. Yes, it does kind of slow down your voice to the microphones. Got it. Yeah. But I think it's terrible. It's worse than Reagan. It's close to Nixon. And it's ridiculous.
And moreover, at this point, there are a lot of things we can do with space. Like, you're going to sit here and honestly tell me that for a televised event, once that equipment is set up, that how many people do you really need in that space?
Right.
Because let me tell you, if you're talking about, for instance, a presidential address, 0. You're sitting. You're not moving. A governor address, 0. You're not moving. Teleconferencing speakers are an amazing invention. Please use them.
Right.
Why are we turning this into a circus?
Exactly.
Why?
Right. But, also there's a lot of other things that I've seen companies doing here lately, and I'm very, very happy with them. Like the dude from Costco is fired. Bye. The Karen of Central Park has been fired, and bye. Enjoy your jail stay. She will be arraigned in October. That's terrible that it takes that long.
Well, right now, I think that's a hope of, not overcrowding courtrooms and pushing a lot of people through for non-violent, non-emergency activities.
Right.
So basically, at this point, this virus is serious enough. Like let this sink in. This virus is serious enough that our legal system is kind of going with emergencies only. They are triaging your case.
All right.
Like let that sink in. Like really let it sink in. Like they are doing everything they can throughout this country for nonviolent, non-emergency situations. In, out, done.
Right.
Here's your summons. Get out.
Right.
Like, hi.
Yeah,
like,
but no, I'm happy
to follow
that people are identifying these idiots, and companies are stepping up and doing it on their own.
Yes. Well, and in many cases, honestly, it will depend upon what they do and how they're doing it. I'm not exactly familiar with which cases you're talking about, but no, we've seen a fair amount of cases where it's like, come on, what the hell, guys? Like, really?
Well, Central Park, Karen is the one that called the New York Police Department for a man that was bird watching and asked her to put her deranged terrier on a leash.
Oh, good Lord.
Costco Bob is the one that was accosting an elderly woman who asked the gentleman to put on a mask, and he went off it. He was apparently an insurance agent. He is no longer an insurance agent.
Well, there's this thing about risk and liabilities that insurance companies are really great at calculating. And someone who attacks someone in a store is probably a big risk and liability to your company. Just a theory.
Theory. And Caleb Beauty and everything else. So it's just like, this is, it's bad. It's bad when your employers are taking steps.
Well, it's bad. It's moreover a sign of the times that, like, hi, this is where we're at. Is that, no, this is going to spill over to the workplace. You're going to see this fall into the workplace. And that's almost, in many ways, an amazing time to live in. I like that employers are starting to understand that, these are damaged good employees at this point.
Yeah.
Hello, Mika and Naya. But yeah. I have an appreciation for that.
Very much.
Companies are starting to really understand that, no, these are very important issues to consumers.
Yeah.
That this is not about, we generally appreciate your, open dialogue and ability to support all views and your ability as a company to exist outside of, like, I don't need a company that goes out of its way to back all my causes. I do, however, appreciate companies that, for instance, do not, say, donate to hate groups or to conversion therapy or to propagandist groups.
Right.
Or all of the above, the NRA. Sorry, but that's where I'm at with the NRA. But, yeah, and Naya, absolutely go ahead and post. We will get to it very shortly. So, no, it's not that I need a company to support all my values, but I do need them to recognize when the values reflected in their customer service, in their employees, starts to cross a severe line in which this is not okay.
Right.
That, no, if you're employing someone who is more than comfortable going out in the public and assaulting someone because of their beliefs, or in terms of, their choice to wear a mask, because we'll still call it a choice. You can choose to be an idiot. I would like you to not choose to be an idiot and kill me, but you can choose to be an idiot. Like, our Constitution has totally enshrined that.
Right.
But regardless, we
Right.
still try to help and like reduce the Darwin Award counts.
Right. But but no, I'm glad to see companies starting to step up and do this. I'm glad to see that some people are, identifying them and, shaming them for their outbursts and their bullshit. And putting, a name, a tag, a something to these Karens who are putting people's lives at risk, because we do have a ultra military force that takes over $8 billion a year for one department.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and my bigger point is, while you have a right to be a dumbass, you do not have the right to avoid the consequences of being a dumbass.
Mm-hmm.
Please try to remember that as you make your choices in this lovely thing we call life.
Yep.
Because sometimes you're gonna have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna hurt when, yeah, you can hold on to your to certain ideologies and no one's gonna give you grief. And then there's others.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna pay for that. You can keep backing it as long as you want to, but it's gonna cost you, and it's gonna cost you a lot.
Yeah.
So are we ready for Naya?
Yeah, let's take Naya and then let's jump into our main topic tonight, because we actually have a main topic.
We do. All right, so Naya has actually given us everything we need. Thank you so much. We appreciate when we don't have to ask. What do you see happening? What do you see happening for me and Elle? We don't talk.
Okay. Now I understand that what I'm looking at, I understand you guys don't currently talk. It is showing that you guys, however, found a balance where you're able to talk. You also have justice falling in there, so that's part of that double balancing. You get your just rewards, but then we have the Sun card as your final outcome, which shows me that a continual relationship or a new cycle begins. So if you're not talking, you're going to probably be talking. I would say definitely you're going to be finding a balance with each other. There is an option of a relationship there.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So back to where we were at. So we were going to Sheets, and I heard a voice on the radio, and I thought she got canceled.
No, I think that was actually my words. I was like, that's weird. That sounds like Suze Orman.
Uh-huh. And as
you're like, that's because that is.
It was her.
Yes, it is her.
With her,
I don't know how she survived. I do not know how she has survived. I do not know who still gives her airtime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we just talk about the scam of Suze Orman?
Yes.
Because, that's where I think millennials, we were like, in the beginning, Suze Orman was kind of like our financial guru. Like, she came out at the right time with what seemed like really awesome advice and a no nonsense attitude, and was giving us a platform to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
In a Dear Abby kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people really got behind her.
Right.
And I was one of them. I bought a book. I totally bought a Suze Orman book.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I struggled for probably about 3 years with that book.
Mm-hmm.
And realized and I think I had kind of an awakening, like a lot of other people did, is that it's not necessarily that Suze Orman's advice is bad. It's that she did not understand one bit a very large percentage of the people that were listening to her and what their circumstances were and what they actually needed to do.
Well, I did more than bought a book. I bought a course and a box set. I mean, during the same time, I was Suze Orman finance because I learned my finances the hard way. I learned my finances by going, oh crap, the power bill needs to get paid, the water bill needs to get paid, the sewer bill needs to get paid, and the landlord's at the door. How do I write a check?
But yeah, no, Suze Orman, I think, made a lot of people feel like total failures.
Right.
Like, ultimately. And I don't mean that because, like, oh, we're poor little snowflakes, we just can't figure this out, like, it's so bad. But literally, we weren't playing with enough cash to hit Suze Orman level advice.
Well, not only that, but the advice was bad. Her advice is live on credit.
In a lot of ways, the advice was not horrific. Like, I don't think she totally trashed people's lives. Now, if you got way deep into the Suze Orman world and you bought a shit ton of books and courses and all the stuff and became like part of the Suze cult, then yeah, you got screwed. Because a lot of that was never going to help you.
Right.
It was advice that required you to be at a certain financial level. Realistically, we were never going to get to. Like, as she's sitting there explaining, like, concepts, which are really great, if you can do them, if that's part of your financial circumstance, if a lot of different things. But she wasn't really getting that a lot of the people listening to her, a lot of the people trying to improve their situation, were never going to be able to get to the level she was talking at.
Right.
That it was going to take a death inheritance, a lot of good luck, to even begin to get to this, have 6 months of your finances in the bank. Like, never going to happen.
Right. Not with her plan.
Like, hi, let's just go ahead and explain. We do not have 6 months of our finances in the bank.
Right.
Like, I have long been part of the club that a $400 expense has only recently become something that, yeah, I can handle that. Like an unexpected $400 expense. And when you're talking about roughly, I believe it was 40% of Americans cannot handle, and this is pre-COVID-19. Pre-COVID-19 and all of its disaster, would not handle an emergency $400 expense.
Right.
You have no clue where that money's coming from.
Right.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, $400 means you don't know where a good chunk of your rent, like let's boil that down. If you lost your job, you don't know where a good chunk of your rent, if not all of it, is coming from. You can't absorb that. You are immediately, do not pass go, do not collect $200, homeless.
Right.
Like, that's where we are financially. When we're talking about $400, that's what I hear in my head. Because I lived in North Carolina, and it took a lot of work to find a place that was originally $550 a month. By the time I moved out, was moving to $650 a month.
Right.
That took a lot of work just to find, and that was a total like bubble situation. Because an identical complex, just a couple of blocks down the road, was the difference between Durham, North Carolina, and Raleigh, North Carolina. The little city line split right in that couple block range. The apartment I was in that I left at $650 was renting for something like $1,800.
Mm-hmm.
Again, took a lot of work to find that little area.
Right.
And I lucked up. I found a few of those, or found a couple of those, because I had 2 apartments in North Carolina. And the previous one was $500 for 550 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
I think they measured part of the parking lot because it was subdivided shoebox. There was not 550 square feet unless it was part of my neighbor's, or you measured my attic space. But it was $500.
Balcony.
Yeah. No, well, yeah, that's true. I guess if you went out and counted my little bit of the breezeway, walkway, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this was an apartment complex that did 32 evictions in 1 month while I was there. This is the first one, not the second one. I did better on the second one. Did 32 evictions in 1 month. Had an entire building they could not rent out because of a infestation of roaches, which was sadly right beside my building. That was great. Loved that part. And was sending around, at one point, sent around a notice that we would appreciate it if you did not do your drugs in plain view of the property. Please go inside your apartment. If any of y'all are watching, let me explain something about North Carolina and a lot of other places. What that property manager did in one sentence was a very big no-no. Because technically what they did is called condoning drug use on their property. And specifically in the state of North Carolina, that one little sentence can become forfeiture of your property because you allowed drug use to occur on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't ever do that. If you're a landlord, here's your great big piece of advice. Don't ever tell a tenant, and especially not in writing, to go ahead and do their drugs, but just keep it in their apartment.
Mm-hmm.
No, bad. Very bad.
Right.
Very, very bad.
But anyhow.
Yeah. Well, one more, though, real quick. In this process of finding that first apartment, let me tell you, I put in an application for an apartment for which, if I had gotten it, driving directions would have literally included the words, turn left at the porno store, Durham, North Carolina. It would have been, I think, $400 and something a month, and I was seriously considering it. I applied for it, in which I asked if there were, current availabilities or if I would have to wait, and they said, no, we can unpadlock a unit for you. I did not understand those words. I had to go have them explained to me, in which basically all of these units.
And he freezes.
Because they evicted so often. And this did not deter me and actually made me upset when I was rejected for the crappy ass apartment behind the porno store. Just FYI. Okay, here we go.
Okay. So the other complex in this one, and this for those that, is either recovering Suze Orman geeks or was part of faith-based prophecy, is Dave Ramsey. And I actually liked Dave Ramsey stuff after I took it and soaked out the enforced Christianization.
Okay.
It started making sense.
Right.
And what we have done, what we continue to do.
Well, what I'm definitely being introduced to.
Well, you've seen it happen. You've seen it happen a
Yeah.
number of times. This is why the house is paid off. This is why, you know, when and then and within his system, you either go into survivor mode
Mm-hmm.
or you go into climbing the ladder.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, and
survivor
survival's not a bad thing. Just
survival
FYI.
is not a bad thing. Survival is living on a written budget and fostering those good relationships. There are certain businesses that I can pick the phone up and say, I want, and they go, okay, we'll bring you the paperwork.
Yeah.
Up until we switched banks, I had a banker. I dealt with one person, Connie. Call her up. Hey, Connie, what's in my account? Hey, Connie, what's this? Call up Julie. Hey, Julie, bring me a refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
Bring me this. Bring me that.
Yeah.
And I think that was the darndest thing for you is I called her up and said, I need a bed at this address. When can you deliver it? Not even her business, not even her territory. Her store isn't even up there.
Exactly. And I do understand that. And I have a newfound appreciation for that.
Yeah.
I've always tried to run with the theory, which kind of comes out of my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't got the money for it now, live without it.
Right.
Just there's none of those put it on credit. Like if you have to finance, you're already behind the 8 ball. So
right.
The words "do you gotta"
Mm-hmm.
need to be popping in your head really, really loudly. Why are we financing? What can we do instead?
Mm-hmm.
And if this moves into the territory of, well, I guess we could go without a refrigerator and just get a cooler and buy ice every day.
Uh-huh.
Okay, no, we have to finance.
Right.
Like that's an acceptable finance moment.
Right.
And I can understand that. Like if we do not have that money,
mm-hmm.
then we got to figure out how to get there quickly, or we've got to go ahead and finance it. It's going to cost you more in the long run, but it's worth it because ultimately it is long term, depending upon how long it takes you with all those bags of ice, how long it's going to take you to save up the money to get the refrigerator. Right. That at some point it quits being, like you can't do that.
Right.
So that was always a big thing. The other part of it was, for the love of God, realize how much you're financing and is it affordable?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're going to buy a car, like really stop and think, before you finance this vehicle, where are you going to be at the end of this loan term? Like we were, I think at one point we saw like one company is now offering like 7 or 8 years of financing on a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just horrified. Do what now?
A first round of vehicle is supposed to last 12. A second round lasts another 6.
Well, as a general theory, I get a little shaky at year 5. Like, I think financing a vehicle for 5 years,
We're talking about 2 different things.
Oh, sorry, what now?
We're talking about 2 different things. If you finance a new vehicle, it needs to last you 12 years.
True.
If it's a second used vehicle, it needs to be able to last you 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I've always looked at and thought at, because people always fuss, well, it gets around 150 miles, you need to trade it in. No, you don't. I've had some lovely vehicles. My grandmother's caddy had 400,000 miles on it, and it still was driving the day we sold it.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and I do understand that. Now, again, I always grew up with 8 was the life of a vehicle, and that was new. 8 years. that at about the 8-year mark, you've had it paid off for it. Again, assuming a lot of things. If you finance for 4 and you keep it for 8, then you have had 4 years without a payment. And if you've already adjusted to that payment and nothing bad has happened, that 8-year-old vehicle still has a good value for trade-in. And if you've even saved 20% of that monthly payment, like continued to set that aside, then that's a part of your down payment for your next vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That those two things together, you can start to get better. Now, granted, some of that is Suze Orman influence.
It is.
It is very much Suze Orman influence.
Right.
I know that. But that was also, that's where the problem with Suze Orman comes in, is that's really nice if you're, like, there was a big asterisk in the middle of everything I said. If nothing goes wrong in 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my problem with the idea of financing anything for that long,
mm-hmm.
for 6, 7, 8 years,
mm-hmm.
in our current economy, that's 2 dumbass presidents in a row.
Mm-hmm. No.
That's a lot of presidents.
No.
Like, I'm sure there are people that say went out and bought a vehicle. Like, let's say, for a hypothetical, if you went out the night before the election in 2016, your life is good, Obama is done great things for the economy, everything's looking up and up, and you went the night before the election and you bought a vehicle, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that right now, you're really second guessing that decision.
Well, not only that, but you're looking at the vehicle and going, do I need that much vehicle? Because they're like $20,000, $30,000, $54,000.
Well, the reality of that's a lot of vehicle for anyone. That's a lot of vehicle for anyone. Financially, that's a lot of vehicle. That's a lot of money.
Right.
That you are tying yourself to.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not small payments.
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's a lot for anyone to take on.
Right. That's
regardless.
Like, the Kia is a 2017?
2016.
2016?
Yeah.
No, 28, 30 is when we'll look at trading it. And then it'll be like, do we really need to? Is it running? Yeah, it's running. Let it be.
I don't know. I mean, well, and depending upon a pass down.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about that.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of that, is kind of having the, spouse trade.
Mm-hmm.
So that you always have one new vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And then one that the history on because it used to be the new vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That, no, maybe you don't want to do that and drive to, like, Florida in it. Like, that might be a bad plan. But you always have that other newer vehicle that will totally make it. That will totally be able, and your previous new vehicle is now taking the role of grocery getter, commuter hauler.
Mm-hmm.
Though I don't know how many more years that's going to hold out. I do not think that even that concept is going to hold out for much longer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we're going to be able to financially sustain it. I'm seriously thinking we're probably less than a decade from an entirely rental vehicle concept. Like, depending upon the viability of AI vehicles. That no longer are you renting a vehicle for the day. You're literally hiring a vehicle, AI powered, please deposit X amount of money. There is no risk in terms of major vehicle damage, maybe some cleaning issues, but no major vehicle damage. And a fully autonomous lineup could go wherever you need it.
But again, there'll be one in the driveway that's mine or yours or somebody's. This whole renting thing, that's where we run into problems at.
It can be. But looking at where we're at with COVID-19 right now, there's a lot of people that have been hopefully able to make their car payments if they have not seen their vehicles repossessed. That are looking out in their driveway going, I'm spending a whole lot of money on something I really can't use right now, or that isn't really benefiting me the way it used to. That, when you're writing that check or you're having the auto withdrawal of $300, $400, $500 a month, you can start to break that down, divide by, the number of work days in a month and go, okay, but I couldn't get a cab for that. Like if you've got to be at that job every single day, okay, fine. Between the gas and the insurance and the maintenance and the car payment, typically you can justify. Hopefully. There are a lot of people that are not even there financially with what they're getting paid when you start to break down. And I ran into one of the people that was helping out with my grandmother, was talking her through the conversation of, you're barely getting paid to show up. But anyway, sorry. Did I derail?
Yes.
Sorry. I didn't mean to.
And then there's things like, and these are things that Ramsey talks about, but Susie never talked about. Stocking the house with food, and making sure that, she was always, build your credit, what's your FICO score? Guess what? It doesn't fucking matter. If I have $10,000 in the bank, I can buy anything I want. If I have $10,000 in my freezer, which is where it should be at, especially in this economy, because we've seen the last recession, banks fail. We're seeing a coin and money shortage. What?
Yeah, I think it's the new version of a bank run, maybe. Is the
new run of crap.
Yeah. Got my coffee mug backwards. But no, and I can get behind that, is make sure you have what you need first. And don't get in the situation where you're so obsessed with credit score.
Right.
Because ultimately, no, credit score is not going to, it's not going to buy lunch. And more importantly, if your credit score is buying lunch, you have big problems. And I've worked with that coworker. I've had that coworker that literally, to figure out their dinner plan, had to go to the bank at lunch to transfer money to get enough available credit on a card to be able to take wife and kids out. And effectively not be embarrassed at the fact of, we can't afford that. Instead of telling her no, pointing out, we're running around with people that we can't afford to run around with. Like, hi, I bought you a car, I bought you a house, I bought you a wedding, I bought you a ring. And now we're doing, all this other medical stuff. We're tapped. Like, we are tapped out.
Right.
Instead of having that conversation and being like, look, we got to scale this all back a bit. Like we got to make a choice here. What we do and how we doing it and when. Because what I realized in that moment is this was someone kind of following that Suze Orman ideal and was using credit, like had an amazing credit score. But their entire financial position was a giant balloon. And they were just continuously pushing more air into that balloon. Like they're trying to get it bigger and bigger and bigger to support more and more and more and more and more. And one day, it's got to pop. Like either the stress of trying to blow more air into this balloon, to push the metaphor as far as it can go, either the effort of trying to blow more air into this, or just the amount of things it's supporting, this is now a juggling act. And you're playing with knives.
Chainsaws.
Well, either which way you go, you're going to get cut.
Right.
It's going to hurt. Because all it takes in that situation, it isn't losing your job. It's forgetting you bought a pack of gum. It's forgetting to enter a transaction. It's forgetting that, oh yeah, that comes out on the 13th, not the 14th. It's a banking holiday that you forget to account for. That it's not sustainable. You can't do that forever. You're going to eventually drop the knife, the chainsaw, the whatever, and you're going to get hurt.
Right. And Mike is asking why Suze got canceled. She got canceled because she opened up a prepaid debit card that was going to report to credit agencies every time you put money on it. And there was a fee for everything known to man. There was a fee for your balance statement, a fee for this, a hidden fee for this, a hidden fee for that. And then someone ran the numbers, and guess what they weren't doing? They weren't reporting to the one thing they said they were going to do.
And somewhere in all those fees, because let me tell you, it is super cheap to report to credit bureaus. All three, in fact. Super cheap. Super, super cheap. They don't even require you do a lot. They just politely ask you at least update them every 6 months. That's it. That's all the credit bureaus require. Is show up every 6 months and say, hey, this is what's going on. And it is very, very, very cheap on a per account basis, on a per update basis. Costs almost nothing. It's not free, but it is cheap. Not as cheap as your actual information is. You'd be surprised if you have a corporate account with a little company called Accurate. You can find out so much information. And at most, you're going to pay them $1.50 for it. At least in 10-year-old numbers. $1.50, you can find out everywhere someone's lived, every employer they have ever had, every piece of property they have ever owned, every bankruptcy they have ever filed, whether they have ever been listed as dead, on and on and on and on and on. Tons of information. Phone numbers, employer phone numbers, neighbor phone numbers, and literally you're talking about like $1.50. Costs next to nothing.
Right. So, that's why she got canceled. Not only that, but a lot of her other products were found to be scammy. Total outright scams.
Yeah.
A lot of her advice was found to be totally outright false.
Or not even sustainable.
Right.
Like, you can't do that. It will not apply to the majority of people. It's very specialized. You have, here's the barrier to entry, and most people are down here being told, if you can't get there, you're an idiot. And it's like, no. You need a freaking ladder to get there.
Right.
The average person is not an idiot in that sense. They need a ladder. So yeah.
So yeah. But anyway, Dave Ramsey, once you boil his stuff out, because you have to boil it out, because it's got a lot of faith-based and religious in there, and I can tolerate it, but we aren't putting my budget in the Bible. My budget is going in my planner.
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
As another comment for anyone listening, and I say this from, I used to work for a debt collector, if anyone hasn't watched enough to know that. If you ever run into a credit repair service that is faith-based, please run away. In fact, most places that are credit repair typically run away. There are not many that will actually fix your credit. Many of them will, and especially not if you have to buy like Amway. Like if you got to buy products and stuff and do that kind of weird, funky thing, run away. It's not going to fix your credit. That was one of the saddest things we saw while working, or I saw while working for a debt collections agency, were the accounts in which people were, because it was faith-based, really trusting. So they're sending this company, say, $100 a month, and they are supposed to repair their credit, pay all their bills, and get everything good. We're taking that $100, and about $98 of that would go as a donation to the ministry, and $2 would split up between all of your outstanding accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sitting there with a $1,000 medical bill and a $500 Finger Hut card and a delinquent power bill and an ambulance ride that needs to be paid and all these other things, all of those bills are getting a portion of $2 a month. So we literally had debtors, because that's what you're called in a debt collection situation, is a debtor. A lot of people are debtors. You'd be surprised. Most people are. They've got an account somewhere. Just so you know, you're not alone. But we would literally see people with like 20 hospital visits to the same hospital, and our accounting department would have to sit there and take like a 25-cent payment on all those accounts and divide it into pennies per each account. You will be paying that off long past the promised land, let me tell you, at 2 and 3 cents a pop.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And not what you're supposed to be doing. It's like a lot of people are looking at credits, and they're going through straits now, and I want to give you the ladder. That's what it's basically seen as a ladder, a climbing ladder.
Okay.
But you can just work through them in different pieces. Like having $1,000 emergency fund. $1,000. This is not to cover your bills. This is to cover a flat tire. If you have cutoffs for your main utilities, you aren't putting into the emergency fund. You're in survival mode still.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying whatever you got to keep living.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you're past that stage, where the bills are paid, then you start building up an emergency fund in cash.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bank, not a safety deposit box, cash in hand. He makes the light of $10 $100 bills on a picture frame that says break only if there's an emergency. I think that's a little over dramatized. A nice used wallet somewhere works quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Or your spouse's purse works quite well.
Yeah, by the way, can I point this out? I didn't get what he was doing at first. Because I don't assume I have cash. I somewhere along the way stopped dealing with in cash. I do not even open that portion of my wallet except to store crap. Imagine my surprise. I open it and there's like $60. And I'm just standing there like, I has money. When did I get money? I don't have cash.
Mm-hmm. And no, you don't have cash.
No. Turned out I did not have cash.
Right.
He had $60.
No,
we had $60. But I did not have cash. Right. I was like, what in the world? Do you have any idea how much that messed me up in the moment of like, what's this strange substance in my wallet? Like, I swear to God, there was a moment standing in that store, I was just dumbfounded.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never open the cash side of my wallet. If it's not a card, I don't know how to function.
Well, you're going to get used to how to function without a card. Because this whole system that I've set up for us, no banks. A bank isn't open at 2 o'clock in the morning when you got to make an ER run. A bank isn't open to get to when the tow truck driver is standing right there and his card reader doesn't work.
Yeah, that was a fun experience.
Yeah.
We actually ran into that. Your vehicle had broken down, and I'm standing there with my lovely little debit card that does everything for me. And the lovely tow truck driver swipes the card, and it says decline. And alarm bells are going off in my head. Like there was a moment there I could have passed out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, I know what my bank balance is, or I thought I did, and this will go through.
Uh-huh.
A lot.
Right.
So, what?
Right.
Like, that's where I was at, and thankfully he had this happen, and was like, it's a problem with the app. I just have to reboot my phone. Sorry, this is taking so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll reboot it and the card will run. And sure enough, he rebooted his phone and the card ran. Right. And I'm just like, the whole time, because that's one of my biggest like freak out paranoias, is like, and thank you, Suze Orman, for giving me this. But I have gotten to a point in my life through not just Suze Orman, but through a couple of other events. Bounce guard, if you know what those words mean, you know my panic. But I've been in that situation where my card was declined for like gum, which is just like freaky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what to do with that.
Right.
Like, how do I not have $1 and whatever for gum?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. That's not a thing you should experience.
Right.
Like, ever. Like, the fact that I could not buy gum one night because my bank screwed up.
Right. So we're going to give them some numbers.
Okay.
Right now, we're currently saving $40 a week. Doesn't matter where we get it from, either it's from a reading or from a network check. We're saving $40 a week.
Mm-hmm.
Until we get $1,000. He says that's rung one. Well, sometimes that has to be the continual rung for me. The next step or baby steps is Bill Snowball. And we've done this very quickly within the past 2 or 3 months, and I've done this before. When you get out of that survival mode is when you start paying off that debt you have.
Mm-hmm.
You take out one, you take out another, and you take it off at the smallest ones, not the largest ones. You're not going to try to pay off your house. You're going to pay off the Discover. You're going to pay off Rent-A-Center. You're going to pay off the car. You're going to nick these off and get them done. You can finance something for 24 months, unless it's a bad loan, you can pay it off in 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and generally speaking, there's typically not a penalty for paying things off early.
Mm-hmm.
Exception on that, and my dad found this out the hard way, and had to really fight over it. If there is a end of term like rebate, because my dad, and this used to be a bigger thing like a couple of decades ago, was you financed a car and, over X number of years, and if once it was paid off, you would get money back. They would give you, basically with the assumption you're going to turn right around and use it as a down payment on another car. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to trade this one in plus the $4,000, I think is what his was. Mm-hmm. He bought a $25,000 vehicle, financed it for 4 years, was getting $4,000 back when he paid off the loan. Well, Dad was in a situation with Mom in which, to get her to Medicaid, we needed to do an asset spend down. So one of the big things for him was, let's knock out the car payment. Actually, payments. There were 2. So pay off the vehicles. If you're going to buy a new vehicle, now's a lovely time to do it if you're doing an asset spend down, especially if you have a minor child. It's considered an essential expense. They will not give you grief, or shouldn't. So he paid off the car early so that he could go ahead and get this paperwork in. Knowing that he only owed like $2,500 on the car and was going to get $4,000 back. So no brainer, right? Except the bank turns around and tells him he did not honor the loan, because ultimately the bank was going to pitch a fit and not give him $4,000 because they lost in those last few payments like a couple $100 in interest.
Yeah.
Always read your terms and conditions. Sometimes it's just crazy.
Right. But I'm going to go back over this because Micah missed it. You want to save $1,000 cash in your hands. You can access it at any time. That's not pizza money. That's not money that it's $1,000 cash that is an emergency fund. That's for real emergencies. Put it to where you can't just easily access it. Like Joe's wallet. I can access it all the time. And then you want to continue paying your dads. But look at the payoffs on them. Take the smallest one. Let's say it's a credit card that you have $200 on. And after you've paid your bills, you take $200 and you pay that card off. Done. Get rid of it. Then the next one, let's say it's $350, and you make its minimal payment of $41. Then you pay everything, pay all your bills, and then you take whatever extra you have, and you pay that bill off. And what you begin doing is eliminating the debts, excluding your house. You don't pay your house off at this point. Then you begin the freezer fund. Now, Joe has another story about the emergency freezer fund. This is the one that Suze Orman always touted and always got confused because she wanted you to invest it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't invest it. You put it in the middle of a roast. 3 to 6 months worth of utility expenses. Yeah. Put it in the freezer. Notice where I ain't touched the bank account yet. Tell them about you selling your deep freeze.
Do what now?
Selling your grandmother's deep freeze.
Yeah, that was a fun experience. My grandmother was a deep freeze money keeper for many, 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 many years. Her and my grandfather both. They also were, as a, so to speak, Depression era couple, because they married in like 36. So yeah, they were trying to start, their lovely life together on the heels of the Great Depression and watching so many things catastrophically fail around them. And a lot of pain and suffering and things like that. Not really big bank people, not really lovers of the bank. You know, Eventually they got there, in terms of most of the money going in. But for many, many years, the deep freezer was a really great asset protector, like a giant safe, really. It sat out in the garage. There were many cuts of meat, because I don't know where my grandmother learned to do this, but that woman could wrap money and make it look like it was like a pork roast. And so you would pull it out. And so, now the other thing she did is sometimes there literally would be meat in there.
Yeah, so there's like not the roast or whatever.
Well, yeah, basically it's like there's like, a roast on one side and like maybe, pork chops or whatever on the other side. And then there's like a little bundle of cash in there.
Right.
And it's all wrapped in aluminum foil. And so, yeah, I don't know what I wonder now if like she could have made like swans, like the pretty little leftover swans, because I swear to God, that woman could make a stack of money look like a freaking roast. So we were really concerned and had not talked, because my father, or her son, predeceased her. I knew this was true up until like the early 2000s. There was money in that deep freeze. And it had been a point of like concern for my dad and I. Like she's getting up there in age and she's sitting with like a mini Fort Knox in the garage. Like a lot of older people did. And it's like, that's a really big target painted on you.
Well, unfortunately, in these times, we need to go back to that. They're already calling for another depression of the 20s.
Brenda, I know your experience. I had a great aunt, when she passed. They distributed out all of her clothes, and funny thing happened. Her and my grandmother had shopped together for years because they were body wise two different sizes between the top half and the bottom half, and literally could swap like half an outfit. My great aunt was a very chesty woman, and had a very small waist. My grandmother had very large hips and not as much chest. So basically, they would buy the same outfit in two different sizes and swap pieces, so that the great aunt got the bigger coat and the smaller pants, and my grandmother got the bigger pants with the smaller coat. Worked out great, many, many years. This was lovely. It was wonderful. They were the same sizes disproportionately and could do that. The problem came in, they distribute out all of my great aunt's clothes, and one of her daughters happened to have kept like this pair of pants and stuck her hand in the pocket and got stabbed by a safety pin. Or not a safety pin, but a straight pin. This is when they realized that everything that she had kept of her mother's, my great aunt's, every single pocket had at least $100 in it. They had to quickly go back and pick up all of her clothing from everywhere they had sent it out to.
Mm-hmm.
Big thing in our family is you do not donate clothing till you check the pockets.
Well, it's like me whenever, the deposit hasn't made time, I start checking the whatnots.
Pardon?
Checking the whatnots. That's where I throw change at. That's where I put dollars at. That's where I put 20s at. When I got ready to move to Columbus, I actually had an extra $400. It was in the house.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Mom always bought our Christmas with spare change.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, different time period, and Mom was exclusively a cash customer. Like, it had to be a big ticket item for her to write a check.
Right.
Like, she didn't write a check for groceries. She had a grocery budget built into the cash she pulled out.
Right.
So all of her spare change she kept, and that bought Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she may throw another 10, 20 bucks with it, but she didn't typically go over whatever she'd saved.
Right. Now, after you get to, you've got that 3 to 6 month emergency fund in the freezer, meaning it takes 48 hours to thaw out, but you have it. It's yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's not controlled by a bank that may not be open, may have closed, may have crashed, may have been bought out by somebody else. Recently, one of our banks here just got bought out by another bank, and it's like, ew, I don't like that. Well, guess what? That's happening a lot. Look at the people that had accounts with Washington Mutual. I had 2 life insurance policies with Washington Mutual that had cash value to them. Doesn't exist anymore. All those years of sending in that little coupon with that little $30 check, gone.
Can be.
Yeah.
I mean, it seriously, there are some major issues depending upon your account types. Yeah, Wachovia, there's a name. God, you're giving me nightmares. Sorry that we, being a North Carolinian for a little while in college, Wachovia was a really big name down there. We had lots of IT assignments built around a fictional Wachovia setup in terms of databases. Yeah, I hated that damn database. That was the scariest friggin' thing I've ever seen. If actual Wachovia ran on that, it was scary. That's all I'm going to say is that was scary stupid.
Right. But no, banks can fail any day. Your freezer, the only thing that happens is you have to go buy more Ziplocs.
Yeah, now personally the frozen thing, like the literal freezing of your assets, no, I'm kind of opposed to that, especially now that we have chip cards. I just got to point that out.
Yeah,
yeah,
cash, not a check, not in a bank. It's cash.
Yeah,
these are just your utility bills and your mortgage payment, and you're going to not put it all into a bundle instantly. You're going to build that bundle up to where you have that amount of money on hand. This is an instant. This could take 3, 4, 5 years to get there.
Yeah.
And
that's a big part of this is remembering that you do not feel like a failure if you can't do this by August. That's not the goal. The goal is to literally, if it's pennies, to recognize that even pennies are more than you had.
Right.
And I've been in that situation where a couple of pennies, like, hi, am I the only one that has had my card declined because of a 2-cent error? Like, I cannot be that only person. I've fucked up to that level in which I was 2 cents off and had to create a cascade of problems.
Well, not only that, but like, if I go to check my balance somewhere on a checking, an ATM, I'm charged $2. I go to withdraw money, I'm charged $2 to $3.95. That's now $7 to access my money.
Mm-hmm.
that cost more
Yeah,
than it costs to run the freezer a month.
basically.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not, I personally don't hate banks. I love our bank. I really personally, yeah, they are. I do personally love our bank. But that doesn't mean that all banks are infallible. Crap happens.
Mm-hmm.
And again, even with this bank that I love so dearly, there is a story, and the ripple effects of it went for almost 2 decades? Yeah, literally 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
Well, decade and a half technically. Um, and almost resulted in one of my cousins beating me up. That's a story for another time. Which I think we told on the show. So if you go back and episodes, you'll find. But anyway, like, crap happens. These are humans.
Right.
You know, the human mistakes occur.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how tech your bank is, human shit will filter in. It is a big part of IT.
Uh-huh.
Is you can build one of the greatest, most awesome systems in the world, and it can be destroyed by a 2-year-old or a cat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, technology is a wonderful thing, but it is still fallible. There are horrible things that can happen.
Sharon, honey, I actually can now have a Chase account. I used to not be able to was not allowed a Chase account. I won't bank with them. Their data system is being held together with duct tape and very, 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 very good DB2 tech support. That is the only thing keeping that bank alive. They were warned in 2008 if they didn't replace their data system that it was going to crash and people were going to lose everything. And they said, oh, well. So, no, I don't like Chase at all. Our bank I like because I can walk in and yell at someone. But I'm very watchful of my bank account. Every little detail I am watchful of.
Notice he is allowed to yell at people at our bank. I am not. Last time I did that, again, 15 years later.
Uh-huh. Well, I will throw a knife that makes Arrington look like a little tornado. So once you get to step 3 and you've got that emergency fund, you still have a mortgage, then you go into what I call step 4. And it's putting $100 a month in a market fund, a money market fund. This is your, retirement. But if you mess up or you got to go finance a car, you go back to step 2. Snowballing that car payment and paying that extra each month and getting that down.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sorry, I'm going to insert one thing here. One, banks really like lending you your own money.
Mm-hmm.
To explain that, if you have a nice balance at your bank and it has been sitting there for a while and you're not doing a whole lot with that, most banks will cut you some favorable terms. One, it shows a lot of stability, but 2, their risk is a whole lot lower.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing you can do, and we actually did, I found this out with our grandmother. We got into a situation with my dad's estate in which we basically had to ask our grandmother to borrow money to finance his funeral expenses that we were going to pay off with the sale of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, zero risk. The worst thing that could happen is it's going to take a while to get that money back, but would eventually come back. And what the bank did is my grandmother had a CD, very nice, safe little instrument to have, doesn't make you any money, will not make you any money, not even worth the paper it's printed on, in terms of return on investment. But it is a very safe asset. It is a very easily attachable asset. And it took literally 20 minutes for the bank to hand us 10,000 some dollars to pay off Dad's bills and the funeral expenses and a few other things. Hand us that money. Took literally minutes, because all they had to do was bar her from cashing in that CD and suspend the pennies she was making on it. And in the agreement, we paid her back more than what we borrowed her. Borrowed from her. Sorry.
Right. But
because we kept it fair, and she ended up technically making more. But the bank was perfectly happy to do the paperwork. It was no big deal. Like, First National Bank of Grandma, and I ain't kidding on it. Like, there was a contract and terms and, signatures and notaries and the whole thing. It was a direct loan. And not a big deal.
Right.
Like, as long as Grandma approves.
Right.
So, side note, things you can do when you have money in the bank is you can actually borrow money at favorable terms from yourself.
Or you can just use your own money and not pay the bank.
Well, true. But even her bank, at her balance, these were all, if I remember right, these were either free or nearly nothing services. Like, as in, if you want to keep yourself honest and not just say, I'm going to borrow this from savings, you can literally go to your bank and be like, hi, I literally want to set up a payment arrangement with myself.
Yeah.
And do it.
Right.
So you have that accountability. It's not just something you said. It's not just something you thought. It's not just something your kids said, because you run into that. Like, kids will break you. Just a note.
So, you don't have credit cards right now. You don't have debt. You're putting in $100 a month into a money market fund. Then you bring in the kids, if you have them. My dog is not going to college. He doesn't need assistance in college. Then you put $100 into an account for the kids.
There's not going to be a Dr. Vladimir?
No, and if there was going to be a Dr. Vladimir, he could work 2 jobs and go to school like his father did.
Yeah, like that pays for college tuition anymore.
Did for me.
Yeah, but it didn't for a lot.
I know.
Like, just as a side note, by the time I went to college in 2000, it was $18,500 a year my first year of college, and went up from there. There is no, at that level of fresh out of high school, way to come up with 18.5, a car in 2000 terms. That was a car. You could buy a car for that per year. Like, that's one of those myths I think people got to let go of. This, you're going to work a part-time job, or you're going to get 2 jobs, and you're going to be able to afford all this stuff and go to school.
Well,
like,
I think
I'm big on that one.
Is realize that college is cute, and it's nice, and it's lovely, and it looks lovely on my wall at the office or in my filing cabinet.
Okay.
But it ain't feasible for everybody, and it ain't useful for everybody.
No, not everyone has to go to college, and there are lots of pros and cons against it. And those all need to be considered, and especially depending upon what you're looking to go to school for, as well as where you're looking to go to school at.
Right.
You can get stuck with some very, very huge loans and in my defense, when I took that first class in 2000 towards my degree, I was looking at coming out of college making $70,000 a year. That was the prospectus.
Mm-hmm.
What they're telling me this degree is worth is a minimum, an easy minimum of $70,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a no-brainer. I'm going to spend less on college than I will earn in income my first year. So making an agreement for a 20-year repayment of $50-some thousand doesn't seem like a bad trade-off. Because yes, I did have scholarship and other things apply there.
No.
But by the time I graduated, that degree was worth about $30,000 to $35,000 a year. It cut in half or less. I took my first job at $30,000 and quickly watched that kind of crumble. Like,
it's like if we ever did adopt, and little Alexander came to me and said he wanted to go and study literature at college, I will take him and dunk him a few times in the bathtub.
No. Yes. We appreciate literature. Literature is a wonderful, beautiful thing. However, there's a moment of, do you need to go to college for that? And side note, what are you going to do with that? Like, what are you seriously going to do with that?
Right.
Like, there are a lot of wonderful literature majors. There are a lot of wonderful political science majors. There are a lot of music majors. There are a ton of English majors. There are wonderful programs that are very enriching, and they are not to be discounted in our society. But at the end of the day, is all the money that you're going to spend on that degree going to be something you're going to be satisfied about? Because it's in many ways not going to help you get employment.
Right. And that's the whole
unless you have a plan. And even then, that's debatable. But we are running into that situation in which you need to consider what you're doing and how you're doing it before you just automatically assume college degree is money in the bank. It isn't. It is not anymore.
Right.
It does not work like that.
All right. You know, exactly, Brenda. It's, you know, her friends is an English major, and it's a pretty piece of paper, but it's worthless here in West Virginia.
Well, it's not that the degree is worthless. It is not that the experience, that the college education is worthless. It's just that it may not convert very quickly or very not obviously career-wise. Right. That you can end up with a bachelor's in English and a master's in English and a doctorate in English, and there's nowhere for you to go but Starbucks to serve coffee. Like, and that's not throwing off on Starbucks employees. God knows we love them. And that's not throwing off on the ability of, you know, of these people to have very impactful meaning on the world around them. But it may not always turn into a paycheck.
Right.
That you've got to have a plan. You have got to have a plan. Like, it cannot just be, I'm going to go to college and get a degree in whatever, come out, and money's going to immediately flow to me. That doesn't work. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you could pretty much go with that. It'll work out. It's going to work out. Not anymore.
No.
Ooh. Well, I mean, unless he writes the great American novel and cashes in on it that way, but even still, did you really need the degree for that?
Right. They don't need a degree for that. The great American novel writer never went to college. We were talking. Was it yesterday we had that debate on if I made as much as an adjunct professor?
Oh, yeah, the adjunct professor debate.
I do have a doctorate.
Yes, one of our lovely viewers, typically a Friday night viewer, Mark, was posting this ad he found for an adjunct professor. This college is looking for an adjunct to make $2,800 per 3 credit hour class they teach, plus 1 hour a week of office time for an entire semester, so 16 weeks. And when you stop, no benefits, nothing. Like, that's it. This is your money. And moreover, this is an outright payment. There's no W-2 going with this. So you got to do your own taxes on it. And I was making the connection that, and trying to figure out, okay, so how many hours is that? How much money does that turn into? Like, what's the commitment? And we're realizing that technically you have fewer students and make more teaching classes like you do.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
That colleges are paying at such a level for an adjunct, because this was an English course. And sitting there knowing that these students are probably paying, I know in my day it was something like, God, I can't even remember. I think it was something like $300 a credit hour minimum. I know it was at least that much, and then there was all the other room and board and blah, food and yada, yada, yada. Yeah. All, and student fees, God forbid, we forget the student fees. But yeah, once you like broke it down to what you were paying per credit hour, that's a lot of money.
Right.
Compared to what your professors or your adjuncts, who teach a lot of your lower level courses, are technically making.
Right. Well, it's like when I was in nursing, the classes were $400 a class. I know that because I wrote a check for every single one of them. But on the other side of that, my nursing assistant, I came out of high school with it. I worked up to my LPN. Genesis was paid for my LPN. I was getting ready to take my RN when I got hurt. But I was paying for the RN, and it's $400 a class. Cash out.
Well, to put it in perspective, in 2000 and all the way through college, I worked through college as a work-study student. $2,000 per school year. Worked 10 hours a week, so $1,000 a semester. So basically, I know how much that adjunct makes. That works out, if you budget it through just the school year, is going to work out to a little more than $500 a month before taxes. Yeah. That's that.
At the same time, it's not the parents' responsibility. You get them to 18.
True.
I think we've been stuffed with this idea that it's the parents' responsibility to pay for the child's education up to high school.
Well, we do run into an issue there. And it's not one of responsibility. As much as it is one of, as a general theory, parents want better for their children than they had for themselves. Like, it's a general thought and theory, is that each generation is supposed to do better. It's the reason we have inheritance. It is the reason we have education in many ways, to help with making each generation better. And we've enshrined a lot of that in our legal system through, exclusions on inheritance taxes up to X dollars. And, subsidizing or creating options for parents to turn one form of wealth into a college education. It's an acceptable reason to pull out of your 401k or your IRA, or to, pull again. It's a reason to pull home equity out of your house and remortgage or double mortgage, or refinance in general. There's a lot of different ways of doing that. And the theory being that this was all supposed to help want our country grow, have the minds that it needs for a future, and for everyone to literally do better. That wherever someone starts with one generation, that next generation is going to step above them and do better throughout their lifetime. And that next generation can step up and do better through a lifetime. What we've seen in the last 20 years is that the supports for those stairs are gone. That what we're looking for in employment, what we're looking for in terms of education, isn't sustainable in terms of cost, in terms of value of degree, in terms of literal employers who are too stupid to function. And I say that when you're looking for someone for, and especially right now, for a sub $30,000 a year job that has 10 years experience and a college degree, but you're recruiting out of college? How does that work?
Well, that's where you have the professional students that are now $200,000 and $300,000 in debt with a lit degree or a degree in sociological performanceal crap that doesn't apply in an office.
I refuse to throw off on degrees themselves or the people that get them. Personally, I refuse to throw off on that. What I do mentally have is that moment of, what was your plan? Like, help me understand the plan, the thought, the theory. Because there are those people that end up in college for like 12 years and they're like, look, you got to graduate. Like, you can't get financed anymore. You got to come out of here with a 4-year degree somewhere out of this 12-year period. Take the last classes for something. And then if you want to stick around and get a second bachelor's or a master's and go for a doctorate or whatever, you can do that. But you got to graduate from something. Or the people that went through and just found, like, what's the easiest degree I can get? Because they didn't understand the opportunity in front of them, or it was not properly explained to them how this works. Right. It's that this is supposed to be a wealth builder. Please don't screw it up with, like, beer pong and, classes. Like, what's the only degree you can get that has classes that start after 10 a.m.?
Right. Well, again, I think instead of looking at degrees, the first thing I want to know is, what do you want to do when you're done? Like, every degree I have, everything that I have, the nursing, that was a job. The psychic stuff, that's a job. Have an idea of a job. And I think if we're sending kids to college at 18 who's never worked before because it's just too hectic for their schedule, they don't have.
More importantly, the requirements to get into a college require so much commitment to after-school programs and volunteer opportunities. Like, the competition to get in, just to get accepted, has become insane.
Right.
Like, because we entered a point in which there were more people trying to go to college than we legitimately had classroom space for.
Well, we had people going to college that didn't need to go to college.
Arguably. we actually also hit a point in our society
Mm-hmm.
in which this wealth building idea sort of ran its course.
Mm-hmm.
Like it worked for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good idea for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of maxed it out a little.
Well, not only that, and I agree, Brendan. Trade schools are amazing. They're wonderful. You can pay by the course, you can play by the class, but when you're done, you have a career. You have a job normally waiting for you before you even get out. And where do we need workers in? Construction. Don't need a college degree, trade class, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy equipment operators, there isn't a college degree for that. There's a test for that. Plumbers, all these other real jobs, you don't need a degree for.
And additionally, we also created an education system built around trying to bring everyone's level of education
Mm-hmm.
up so high. We forgot about the need for different positions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't care how well or how great your community is. There are some key things you need within that community.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't look down on your garbage people. Please don't.
Yeah.
They are very important. We'll tell you now. They go on strike, you will know it quickly.
No. But you look at,
you know, but and that's not necessarily a college degree requirement. But we also frowned upon positions for many years.
mm-hmm.
You know, that they didn't have value.
Mm-hmm.
That we turned them into a cautionary tale.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like the concept of go get that English lit degree, what we're doing now, go get that English lit degree, and you're going to get stuck working at Starbucks or McDonald's or somewhere else. We've turned certain positions into a cautionary tale. Food service is very important. And my problem with that is that when we start turning positions into a cautionary tale, that if you don't do well in school, you'll end up like that guy at Starbucks or that guy or that girl at McDonald's, is that in that activity, we not only insult the person doing the job, which, by the way, you're insulting the person that cooks your food. Think about that real long and hard. But we're also not recognizing the long-term value.
No.
We need people to, this is part of a modern society.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we need people to fix our food. Like, this is what keeps a lot of high-end business people running. Right. This is what keeps a lot of high-stress job families fed.
Work is work, and it needs to be taught early, in my opinion. And agreed, Brenda. There is no shame in honest work. There is no shame in regular work or creative work. But there is aggravation when, and I can see it in people's eyes when they are at McDonald's and, people are putting down McDonald's. Guess what? McDonald's will send you to college for restaurant management and hospitality services, and they'll pay you all the way through for the hours you're in class, the hours you're working, and for your degree. And you walk out of there, it may take you 5 years, but you walk out of there with a degree. Total, complete, done with, cash, paid out, free.
Well, and the other thing I would point out is if we're going to shame anyone for their how they make their money, please realize that investments, hedge funds, stock trading, none of that is actual work. Like, please realize that. That is not work. That is, at best, like, if you want to do the comparison, it's gambling. It's a best guess. It's a hope.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we propped up in our national health disaster unfolding as we speak. That's what we propped up. That's what we propped up in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we did.
Mm-hmm.
We as a society did not reap the benefits of our government the way we should have.
Right. And we're still not reaping the benefits of them. Politicians, another job that isn't work. That's why it shouldn't be paid.
Well, moreover, it should not be paid at the level that it's paid at.
Oh,
Not that I think our politicians should make nothing. I can understand our politicians being at least legitimately paid for their time. However, realize how few days they're working,
mm-hmm.
and limit those benefits. That's the key part of it, is limiting the benefits. And more importantly, not letting it be a never-ending gravy train.
Mm-hmm.
Like we need term limits.
Right.
You should not be able to make a 60-year career out of being a senator.
Right.
That's ridiculous. There is no way you can be effective if your last real world experience is 60 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with that, Shannon. Or Sharon.
Actually, I've had a better one. Pay them minimum wage and they have to clock in. They are paid for their clocked in hours in the Capitol.
Well, I'm not necessarily at the point of minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
I am at the point that I do not think you should suffer horribly to be a politician. I don't think you should unjustly benefit. It's become a never-ending champagne waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if you're voted out after 10, 15, 20, 30 years, now you're a lobbyist. Now you've got a book deal. Now you've got a this. You're going to make money at this, period, regardless of what we pay you as a senator.
Mm-hmm.
I am more in line with the state approach. Mm-hmm. I think one of the most humbling conversations, or one of the most grounding conversations, I should say, was with one of our local representatives for the town we live in, or one of our district representatives. She answers her own phone.
Mm-hmm.
Her secretary is also herself.
Mm-hmm.
The state does not pay her as a state representative in such a never-ending gravy train that she is totally out of touch with the world around her.
And she still works 3 emergency room shifts a week.
Mm-hmm. It's a very grounding conversation, and it makes a lot of difference.
Right.
In terms of relatability, the ability to talk to someone, and in our case, the eventual ability, once all this crap is over, get together and have lunch. Mm-hmm. That was a legit offer. That wasn't a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. That was a legit offer. Let's grab lunch.
Mm-hmm.
I have an appreciation for that.
Right.
That's where government needs to be. That's the approachability that government needs to have.
Right. And Dr. If y'all are wondering, we're talking about, and I have no problem saying we're talking about Dr. Martha Staggers.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem. I have backed her. I have worked in the ER with her. I have worked on the floor with her. That woman will change a diaper, hold up a patient, pick up a patient.
And most importantly, when I call and scream into her voicemail, she hears it directly.
Yes.
And she becomes quite concerned.
Of course.
And I did not realize that. I am way too used to a government in which, say, Joe Manchin, Senator Manchin, not part of the state anymore, He doesn't hear that directly. He doesn't reply to that directly. He doesn't see that directly. He doesn't hear that directly.
Mm-hmm.
There is a staffer. Let go. That's their job. They deal with this. This doesn't influence him, and you see how that works out. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, can I point out where we are at with the I still can't think of it.
EpiPen?
The EpiPens.
Yeah.
Like, hi, that's where our government is. His daughter literally works for the company that is pricing EpiPens. Mm-hmm. And these are people so far removed from the general public, they don't understand what the problem is. Hi. Figure it out. Mm-hmm. It's not hard.
No. By the way, the rest of this and how to work the ladder will be a blog post coming up this week. I'll just go ahead and put it that way for those trying to take notes and got lost. I will just go ahead and put it into a blog because I actually have another blog that this ties into called Manifesting Destiny, and it's a budgeting planner. And I'll put those two together, and they may even go into our Patreon newsletter.
Absolutely. And with that, I'll let you take it away.
So, guys, we do have Patreon. It helps support us because we are not monetized. We will not be monetized because, quite frankly, we don't see a use in it. A lot of things we talk about here would get suppressed on YouTube and wouldn't be monetizable to begin with, and Facebook hasn't done it. The blog is at aesonknight.com or pcsnetwork.com, and it will be going up, and I will make sure that it's posted all over our social media when it does. We want to thank our Patreon sponsors, Beverly Walker and the Crystal Lotus Shop. If you'd like to join Patreon and help, support the show, feel free to do so. You can check out our levels. We have different benefit packages there pulling together. But we like doing this. If you guys haven't figured it out, we enjoy doing it. It's not a big expense for us, but the little extra helps out a lot too. Yeah. So check those out. Check out what we provide. I provide a lot of services that you can go and find on my website, aesonknight.com. There's a link to it from pcs.network. Check out Mystic Computers. It's one of the only pagans, we understand when you say, well, I need a spell page on my website. Not a problem. Do you want to protect your spell page, or do you want a spell page to increase business? We're not going to freak when, we see, a big flaming pinnacle as your background when we repair your computers. So be sure to check out mysticpcwv.com. That's, Techy Joe's side of things. And just kind of go into a little bit of what you do, Joe, because we've always talked about what I do on the show. What do you do?
Well, you mean with Mystic Computers?
Yes.
Well, there's a lot of things that technically I can offer. Everything from home user support, tablet and device support, up to small businesses. So we also provide web hosting services and web page development. Including mobile design. That is actually a big part of businesses right now. If your web page doesn't show up on a cell phone, easily navigatable and easily readable, you're losing customers because the vast majority of your customers will be looking for your business on a phone. So just a note, always take time to check out your professional webpage, especially if you own a small business like a restaurant, hair salon, any of those lovely essentials. Make sure that is available on mobile. That is a big part of maintaining your customer base.
Yeah.
So that's one of the many, many things that we offer.
Branding support.
Photography services. We're kind of all over the place.
Right.
We're trying to be an essential businesses services, basically.
Yeah.
All the things that businesses in 2020 really need.
Right. And pagan focused. For us, I always go for the pagan focus because it's real hard to be looking at, an IT guy and trying to explain that you make candles for a specific reason, and then you need to be able to uncheck and say that one is sold out if it's the wrong season, but you don't want to delete it because you're going to make another one in 6 weeks. You get that. We manage a few different pagan sites. We're going to be managing a lot more, hopefully, here soon. So, guys, check that out and check out PCS Network, see what we're doing over there. Of course, you can always book appointments with me. I am supposed to be in Morgantown Saturday. If the viral load gets down just a little bit, we're kind of holding off on that. I'm hoping to be able to come up in Morgantown Saturday and Sunday. But we will see.
Yeah, it's been a little scary in the news if you guys haven't caught it.
But all right, guys, you guys have a lovely night, and we will see you later. Bye, y'all.
See you Friday. Bye-bye.